Right, back with you on the Newsfeed PM. The Judicial Service Commission, I beg your pardon, has resolved not to appoint any of the three candidates interviewed for the Deputy Judge President of the Eastern Cape High Court Division. The JSC will re-advertise the vacancy. To discuss this further, I'm joined now by Mbekezeli Benjamin, an Advocacy Officer at Judges Matter. Good to have you, Mbekezeli, and thank you very much for coming on this afternoon. It's my understanding that even in October 2024, the JSC declined to recommend candidates for the vacant Deputy Judge President role in the Eastern Cape, citing a lack of suitable candidates. It's happening again this time around. Is it just a matter of a lack of suitable candidate, or is there something, as one of the candidates put it, that is an enormous problem in this province that needs the attention of the Chief Justice?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mbekezeli, and good afternoon to the viewers. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Eastern Cape High Court has now the second time not filled vacancies that are existing. It's the first time that they are not filling the vacancy of the Deputy Judge President position, which is the second in command in the province. And I should maybe give a little bit of background in the Eastern Cape and the judiciary in the Eastern Cape. It's unique in the sense that it's the only province that has 5 seats. So there's a High Court seat in Mthatha, in Bisho, in Makhanda, Gqeberha, and East London. And so there are 2 Deputy Judge President posts in the province, and each one serves a different area. So this time around, they were advertising for the Deputy Judge President who is servicing Gqeberha and East London and Bisho as well. And the reason that came about is that the Deputy Judge President who was in the position, Judge Van Zyl, retired at the beginning of this year. And there is another Deputy Judge President in Mthatha, and he is acting now as Judge President since the Judge President, Selby Mbanenge, went on special leave. And look, the problem that the JSC had is that there were 3 candidates who were interviewed, but the JSC said none of them were suitable for appointment because they didn't believe that during the course of the interview, any one of them could give really a compelling vision of what they intend to do with the province and with the position. Because in the Eastern Cape, it's a vast province, very rural province. The court system in the province is facing some difficulties in terms of its functionality. We heard a couple of months ago allegations of corruption at the Mthatha High Court, and that was actually quite a dominant feature in the interviews that happened this week. And so after hearing those 3 candidates, the JSC said none of them were suitable for appointment. I think it's a more structural issue that does need intervention of the Chief Justice and maybe the judicial leadership.
Did Judge Kaula overstep in his summation of what he thinks is going on? They're saying, well, in Gqeberha and Makhanda High Court divisions, generally things are ran smoothly there. But he says when it comes to Mthatha, there are big problems. He says you can't even trust practitioners appearing before you. They would be honest and represent their client's interest and would not lie to the court.
Well, look, Judge Makaula was very frank in his interview. He laid bare some of the problems that unfortunately are dogging the Mthatha High Court, which include allegations of corruption, that practitioners are buying and some officials in the court are selling trial dates. And that is something that required the Chief Justice Meyer to actually go down to Mthatha for an intervention, and also Mthatha, to try and deal with that problem. They rolled out case lines or court online to try and make sure that some of those processes are done electronically and no longer by paper to avoid some of that. But that is only a symptom of a wider problem, that the court has not really been led properly. There have been perennial challenges for well over a decade. If you were sitting in the interviews for the Mthatha High Court 10 years ago, some of those problems that still were presented this week would have been there. And so there is a problem, and there does need to be a more systemic intervention that requires not only dealing with the registry's office and other court operations, but I think what Judge Makaula was speaking about was to say that even among the legal community there, maybe there needs to be a reconciliation to try and get to a new footing in terms of the way in which the court and the legal profession relates. Because if you have legal practitioners that you cannot trust, then you cannot really run a court system.
So this uncertainty now around the appointment of the Deputy Judge President in the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court, does it present further uncertainty then about work that the judiciary there would need to conduct?
Well, look, there is a problem in the sense that there is an acting judge president in the Eastern Cape High Court, and then there is now acting deputy judge president in Gqeberha, and now Judge Ntlangulela, who is the substantively appointed deputy judge president in Mthatha. He's now serving two positions essentially, and that is the uncertainty that Judge Magola was speaking about, to say that if you're having acting appointments for so long. I mean, Judge Mbenenge has now been on special leave for 2 years. Judge Van Zyl, like I said, has retired at the beginning of this year. So for now, going on to the third year, you have this uncertainty in that province. And unfortunately, it can't be dealt with until the tribunal looking into Judge Mbenenge wraps up and comes to a finding, and maybe he can either go back to work or he can be removed depending on the outcome of that tribunal. So until that is dealt with, there will remain this uncertainty. And so what Judge Magola put forward as a proposal is that the acting appointments that are being made, they shouldn't be made on a short-term basis, because up to this point, they've been made over, an acting appointment will be made for like a month or two. It should be longer, so that someone who steps into the position can actually put in place plans to deal with some of the problems that came up during the interviews, and also to stabilize the courts, because in as much as the Eastern Cape is just one province, but it's an extremely important province. It serves, like I said, a vast rural community, and there is a crying need for justice services in that province. And so you do need stable leadership. And in as much as there is this tribunal that is ongoing, there should be an intervention that is made to appoint leaders who can act for a longer period, and they can at least put in place some plans to stabilize the court system in that province.
It said that the JSC is looking at re-advertising this particular vacancy. What's your view as Judges Matter on the widening of the short list, and is there prospect even to widen it?
Well, look, there is no limit that only judges of the Eastern Cape can apply for the vacancy. There can be others from outside of the province, but ideally it should come from someone who is in the province and knows the challenges of the courts that are there. The JSC also re-advertised the vacancy, or cancelled, I should rather say, they cancelled the interviews for judge positions in Mthatha and Makhanda, and they said they will re-advertise those. So we're looking in April that the JSC will be interviewing both for the deputy judge president position, but also for judge positions in the province. And it is not limited. There is no strict requirement that only the people in the province. So there might be possibly people who come from outside of the province who can apply for those positions. But what we as Judges Matter are expecting is that the JSC will put this as a very high priority. There should be an intervention, I think, led by the judge president or even the heads of court to try and deal with the systemic problems in the province, and not just a once-off appointment and leave the problems to fester.
Now, we always speak about the role of deputy ministers, and they say, well, they're not really members of cabinet, you know, why do we have these positions, and so on and so forth. And the answer you would get is really purely around the division of labor. So what's the role of a deputy judge president? Is it also around the division of labor?
Yes, the deputy judge president is unlike a deputy minister in that if the judge president is unavailable or the position is vacant, the deputy judge president steps into the position and makes sure that the court system runs. In a province like Gauteng or perhaps the Eastern Cape, the deputy judge president is actually a very, very important role, in the sense that they effectively run the court in the particular part of the province. In Johannesburg, there is the deputy judge president there. In Pretoria, there's a deputy judge president. The judge president for Gauteng looks over the entire province. But those two deputies are looking at the courts specifically in those areas and making sure that they run. Similarly, in the Eastern Cape, there are two deputy judges president. One is for the Gqeberha High Court, and they make sure that the Gqeberha High Court, the Bisho High Court, and the East London High Court are running as they should. And the one in Mthatha makes sure that the Mthatha High Court also runs. So there are two deputies taking care of the opposite ends of the province. And that's because of just the vastness of the province. It wouldn't be possible for one person to be looking at a court in Mthatha and another in Gqeberha. The distances are too far apart. So the deputies are effectively running the courts in those areas.
Right. A call for an overhaul of the entire system. I mean, what would that entail as others are calling for?
Well, look, there is currently a proposal on the table that was done by Justice Moseneke when they did a review where the jurisdictional boundaries in the Eastern Cape are still very much the apartheid boundaries, where if you are in Qonce, for example, in what was used to be called King Williamstown, if you want to go to the High Court, you need to go to the Makhanda High Court instead of the Bisho High Court, which is about 5 to 10 kilometers away. It doesn't make sense, but that is how the jurisdictional boundaries are written. And so the proposal is that those boundaries should be rewritten to make sure that people are closer to the court. And also, as part of that overhaul, is that there should be more resourcing to some of the courts. A proposal was made that the Bisho High Court should have more judges so that more people can have access to high court services as the jurisdictional boundaries are redrawn. Similarly, in Mthatha, which handles quite a lot of what used to be called the former Transkei region, which is rural, but has very complex crime in terms of what we see multiple murders, we see stock theft. Those cases sometimes do come to the High Court, and the court is inundated. So an overhaul would require that that court is properly resourced in terms of additional judges, but also additional infrastructure to handle the caseloads that are coming to that court.
Mbekezeli Benjamin, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on.